Coming up, the Orlando Magic lose to the Pistons in game 2 of their first round matchup. The defense was there throughout the night. Unfortunately, the offense reverted back to the level that it had been in the last 2 playoff runs. We'll go over the good, bad, and the ugly, as well as give out grades and look forward to game 3 in Orlando on Saturday. But first, this is the Orlando Magic Nation, your source for all things Orlando Magic on YouTube. For Magic fans, by a Magic fan. I'm Edwin Valentine, and I want to thank you very much for clicking on this video and spending a little bit of time talking Magic with me. Got to do the normal YouTube things, like, share, drop a comment below, and if you want to do so, hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on any content that I produce. If you're an audio podcast listener, make sure to rate the show 5 stars and send it to someone because it really helps the show grow by reaching more people. All right, let's get started. Now, going into game 2, we were all very excited on how the game went from game 1. Of course, we had that extra day off, so it was just a little bit more time for Detroit to hear how bad they are and how game 2 was going to be a must win, and they are not deserving of being the number 1 overall seed in the Eastern Conference, and how the Magic are going to make this a series, and all the other narratives that end up popping up after 2 days of playoffs. Now, luckily, there's a bunch of other playoff matchups so that the media can't just focus on this one series in particular, because imagine if this was the Eastern Conference Finals or something like that and there's only 2 series going, Detroit would have really been hearing it for the whole entirety of the days off between the games. But the Magic were obviously riding high, having won their first road game with this group, and I don't think they drank the Kool-Aid like Paolo was saying. I feel like they understood the ramifications of this game. They understood that they did have that road win already, and they have played well in the playoffs at home, as well as just throughout the season. They played better at home than on the road. So I'm not to say the human nature didn't kick in and they were realizing that, oh, okay, we have our one road win. We don't need this game necessarily. While Detroit knew they needed to win this one. For whatever reason, in the end, they did come out, and they're the ones that were the initiators of the physicality, as everyone had talked about post game in that first one, that the Magic punched them in the mouth first. They have to be the ones to do the same, blah 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 blah. And for the most part, that's what did happen in the beginning of the game. The Magic came out cold. Unfortunately, they were cold from the field throughout the whole entire game. But in the end, they were able to kind of ride that first wave. They shot poorly. Detroit shot poorly in the first half, really. And the Magic were able to stay in it. So obviously, they made it to the free throw line more in this one, which is something that we expected would be the case. Duran didn't really get going. He only scored 10 or 11 points, excuse me. So it wasn't like he was dominant or his all-star self. It's just the feel of this one was definitely tipping towards Detroit's favor. Now, Detroit hadn't won a home game in the playoffs since 2008. So they got off the schneid on this one. A lot of positive things happened for them, but really, I feel this was a loss by the Magic. Of course, Detroit's going to get the pub. They've been the number 1 seed all season. They're the ones that should have won this game. So it's not like doesn't feel very, very surprising. If the Magic had taken this one, then it would have been really surprising. And then Detroit really would have been in the crosshairs from the media perspective. But Detroit did what they were supposed to do. They won at home. The Magic has already had their one win in Detroit. So this one kind of felt like it went to script, especially if you look at the historical data for number 1 seeds that lose game 1 at home. It's something that the Magic have done a couple times as well, winning game 1 on the road and then losing the series basically 4-1. So let's hope that that's not something that's going to happen in this one. But all in all, it was a game that kind of felt like it happened how it was supposed to happen. We had hoped that the Magic would have come out with a bit more physicality. They did come out with physicality, not to say that they were run over, because again, they were in this game for much of the for the entire first half, of course. The game was tied at 46 at half. So again, it wasn't like Detroit was the team that just ran out in front, kind of like how the Magic did to the Hornets in the second play-in game. So that wasn't the case. So I guess in the end, it it was that run in the third, as we all know, 28-3, I believe it was, off the top of my head. The Magic have we've seen this a couple times this year where the Magic just get into this long streak where they either can't score or their defense just kind of lets go of the rope just for a little bit. And once that happens, then the Magic at times when their offense really isn't rolling, then it's hard for them to keep pace. It happened to in the Houston game at home in that second game against Houston. It happened obviously in that Toronto game where it was 31-0 between the first and second quarters. So we know that that's something that unfortunately the Magic have experienced this year. We hope that it might not happen in the playoffs, but it kind of just is what it is in this one. So really the Magic did their job. They won. I know a lot of people are kind of feeling a bit down about this one, but again, they got their split. If they win their games in Orlando, this series will be over in 6, and we'll all be rejoicing for the Magic finally winning a playoff round since 2010. Now, means they have to win at home. Obviously, game 3 is going to be the one that everybody's going to have circled. An afternoon game on a Saturday. Hopefully, everybody gets their rest correct and everybody does what they need to do to recover, because it's going to be an early game and it's going to be a really, really big one in Orlando. Hopefully everybody comes out to the Kia Center and just really brings that same energy that they brought in the Charlotte game. That also includes the team as a whole as well. Hopefully they're able to lock in, be super focused, and we're able to use that home court advantage to really propel the Magic, because this is what they have done the last 2 years. The Magic have in the last 2 years lost the first 2 games on the road and then came home in game 3 and were able to prevail in those ones. So hopefully the Magic are able to continue that tradition, since we're in year 3. First time is could be lucky. Second time starts a trend. So now we're in year 3. Let's see if they're able to continue that trend moving forward by winning game 3, then going up 2-1. Then we're halfway there. Then a lot of things start to roll into place. So the Magic are in a good spot. That one chunk of time, so maybe the first 7 minutes of that quarter, if you take that part out, then obviously the Magic were competitive the rest of the game. So, and if you look at it, out of the 8 quarters played so far, the Magic have outscored the Pistons in 5 of them. So they're, again, as the 8 seed, it wasn't like the Magic have been on fire from 3, as we're going to go over. They are definitely not hitting their threes, but the Magic are in this. This is going to be a series. I know it's a 1 versus 8, but it really could have been a 4 versus 5, which is what I think a lot of people were expecting this series. If these two teams would have played at the beginning of the series, the beginning of the season, I think most people would have expected it to be the 4-5 or the 3-6 matchup, not the 1-8. Especially with as much talent as the Magic have. So again, I contend that the Magic have, if you look at the starting lineups, the Magic have an advantage in 3 out of 5 of them. Duren really didn't do all that much in this one. Wendell did even less. So there was an advantage, Jalen Duren in this one. So that would obviously be the second one that they have the advantage on. So you know, for me, I watched the game. I was disappointed by that one section, obviously, the first 7 minutes of the third quarter. And when you look at our playoff history, and if you look at the season as a whole in this one, it's normally the third quarter that hits us. There have been times where there have been fourth quarters where we kind of collapsed, but normally it's the third quarter. And it happened against Detroit earlier this year at home, and that's the game that afterwards that the Paolo and Mosley were kind of talking about who made adjustments. If the Magic didn't make an adjustment, and Detroit did make an adjustment, so it became adjustment gate. And unfortunately, that happened again in this one. So everybody after the game spoke well, so that we don't have any drama in that case. So that's good. But unfortunately, it's something that we've seen in the last 2 series over the last 2 years, as well as a lot during this year, that third quarters are just kind of our bugaboos. So if we just look at the game as a whole, we can look here now. Again, most guys didn't play all that well, and I think that was the sad part of this. I feel like if any one of the guys were to have had a good offensive game, and we might have been able to ride a higher first half, and then we would have been able to maybe go into the half with a lead, which would have put more pressure on the Pistons, and maybe they missed some of those shots, or their aggressiveness becomes fouling instead of just taking the ball away. So that was a disappointing part. But if you look at Paolo in his 34 minutes, he scored 18 points, 7 of 17 from the field, 0 of 2 from three, 4 of 8 from the free throw line. If he would have made his free throws again at the beginning of the game, then again we would be leading. So that does stink. 6 rebounds, 8 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 4 turnovers, and a negative 15 in the game in the plus minus. Franz in 31 minutes, 4 of 11, 0 of 2 from three, 4 of 4 from the free throw line, 7 rebounds, 1 assist, 4 steals, 2 turnovers for his 12 points and a negative 22. Franz was not good in this game, and I think that's the surprising thing of the last 2 games for me. He's really only had 1 good quarter. The rest of the time, he just has been pretty passive, it feels like. Yeah, like he would handle the ball, he would start to kind of drive, but he wasn't driving downhill as ferociously as he has throughout the beginning of this season and in years past. So maybe he's still injured. Maybe they're doing a good job of shading another guy over, since the Magic haven't been able to hit an outside shot, and that's what's been holding Franz back a little bit. I don't know, but it just in the end he did not have a good game at all, other than the 4 assists, excuse me, the 4 steals for Franz in this one. Wendell Carter, 24 minutes. I mentioned he would probably be in foul trouble, and he ended up fouling out in this one. 1 of 6 from the field, 0 of 2 from three, 1 of 2 from the free throw line, with 5 rebounds, 1 steal, 2 blocks for a negative 29. So he led the team with the plus 20 last game, and then ended up with a negative 29 in this one for his 3 points in total. So I mentioned it in the video that I came out with yesterday, that I think Duran was going to get more calls, and Wendell was going to be in foul trouble, and it wasn't going to be a great Wendell game. I didn't think it was going to be this bad, to be honest. Wendell's been playing pretty well in the last couple of weeks, so I thought Wendell would be able to match at least the 11 points that Duran had in this one, but that just wasn't the case, unfortunately. So pretty bad game for Wendell. Desmond in 33 minutes, still struggling. 2 of 11 from the field, 2 of 7 from three. So that's 0 of 4 from 2-point range, which is, again, something that Desmond hadn't really been struggling from 2-point range much this season. Got called for a weak offensive foul on him fading away, and it kind of seemed like a no call to me, but that is what it is. 6 of 7 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, 3 turnovers for his 12 points, and negative 22 for Desmond Bane in this one. And then Jalen, 32 minutes, let's say, 7 of 18 from the field, 3 of 10 from three, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 turnovers for his 19 points with a negative 18 plus minus. Now, to be fair, I think Jalen has actually played relatively well these first 2 games. Obviously, he led the team in scoring with 19, which that's never going to bode well for the team in general. It's only the high scorer with 19 points. But I think in the end, Jalen just has been playing within himself. He wasn't as chaotic and shot out of a cannon in this one as he had been in the game prior, but he still was active. He didn't have a steal or a block, so that shows that maybe the Pistons were doing a better job of making sure that he was not in the play, and they were focusing on picking on someone else. But the Magic don't have a guy on the court really that can just be picked on constantly. And Paolo, I guess, would be that guy. That would be the one. Maybe Desmond a little bit as well, but that didn't feel like that was the case in this series so far, that they've been able to kind of do what the Magic have done with Duncan Robinson. The Magic are normally going after Duncan Robinson or a Herter or somebody like that to try to, or a Jenkins to try to get some advantages on there, because that's kind of playoff basketball. Now, they haven't really been, or they didn't in this second game. They weren't that successful and or weren't really focused as much as they had been in the first game on really getting at Duncan Robinson. There was a point in the third period and the third quarter where he ended up with 3 fouls in a row. Why wasn't that something that we started the game with, right? So Sometimes you can feel it just right off the screen that the Magic may not be as focused as they can be, which is something that unfortunately we've dealt with all year. But hopefully they're able to lock in for Game 3. Bench scoring was pretty non-existent. So AB in his 24 minutes of action, 1 of 6 from the field, 0 of 1 from three, 3 of 4 from the free throw line, with 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 steals, no blocks, and a turnover for his 5 points. He was neutral, no plus minus, or just he was neutral with 0 as a plus minus. Tristan, 17 minutes of action, 1 of 3 from the field, 1 of 2 from three, 3 points, or excuse me, 3 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 turnover for his 3 points, and a +2 plus minus. Goga, 21 minutes, no points. Excuse me, nothing from the field, so no official shots, no threes, 3 of 4 from the free throw line, however, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and 2 turnovers for his 5 points. Excuse me, for his 3 points. He had 5 personal fouls. So again, the Magic were fouling more in the paint. The Detroit did a good job of getting in the paint. The numbers were flipped, basically. The Magic scored 54 points in the paint in Game 1, and the Pistons scored 54 points in the paint in Game 2. And the inverse, the Pistons scored 34 points in the paint in Game 1, and the Magic scored 34 points in the paint in Game 2. So that was an odd little anomaly there. So the Goga with his 3 points, he was a plus 11 in his minutes, however. So I'm not saying we bench Wendell now, but it's again, I really think that Goga is doing a good job defensively on this in this game so far. They're not running any plays for him. The Magic don't have a great lob tosser. And I think that's the thing that they suffer from the most. There's a lot of people that want the Magic to have a pure passer or a true point guard. And I think that's where we miss out more than anything. It's those type of passes that need finesse to be able to get the alley oops. Franz threw 2 alley-oops last game, but again, it's not natural necessarily. At least it doesn't seem natural. It feels like he's placing it as opposed to having somebody like Turkoglu who used to be able to just throw lobs to Dwight all the time. We'd be able to get a lot of easy baskets, I think, if we had somebody that could lob to Goga. But that is what it is. Then we had a sprinkle of Jamal Cain before it became a blowout and a bunch of other guys got into the game. 7 minutes for Jamal, 1 of 2 from the field, 0 of 1 from three, 0 of 1 from the free throw line, 1 rebound, 1 steal, and 1 turnover for his 2 points and a +3 plus minus. Then we had Jace, Javon, Jet, Mo, and Noah all get in for the last 3 minutes when it was still about a 20-point cushion. So Jace made the most of his time out there. 2 of 2 from the field, 2 of 2 from three. There was one. The Magic were down by 15, and for some reason, Jace had a perfect shot to be able to shoot a second three. So it would have been back-to-back threes, which would have cut it to like 12 or so with 2.5 minutes left in the game. And he didn't shoot the three. In the end, I think Jet might have shot the three, missed it. We weren't going to win this game anyway. That's not the real big thing. But Jace ended up hitting another three later on that, again, kept the score tighter. That I don't know. It just that aggressiveness we need from Jace. Whenever he's open, he just needs to let it fly. So he had 6 points, and no one else scored really in those 3 minutes. So Magic, in the end, you look at the summary, the recap of our scoring: 33% if we round up and are generous from the field, 25% from three, 72% from the free throw line. 13 offensive rebounds. A lot of those happened early when the Magic were still really active in this game. Only 29 defensive rebounds and 42 rebounds overall. 17 assists. That's not bad. Obviously, that's something that we needed to have more, closer to what it was last game, around 26, which is our average. 17 is too few. The Magic really should they needed to either do what they did last game or do what they did a lot last year in the playoffs. So last game they had a lot of ball movement. The ball was popping, the ball was going around, and then a lot of different guys were able to get the open shot or to create mismatch matches through the ball movement and the screening and all of that. So either you play that way or you play the really slow it down, post up every time down, slow everything down, make the defense come to you. Right, pretty much this last game they played in between. They would start to drive, but then kind of stop short, and then that's where Asar Thompson would come over and strip somebody, or then they would kind of go all the way to the basket and get stripped there instead of again being more methodical, or either you play all one-on-one or you play a team game. But this one felt like they kind of played in between. And if you don't really have a philosophy again, then or even a strategy, then you're not going to be successful. And I think that's where, unfortunately, we landed with that. But the Magic had 16 steals, 6 blocks, 17 turnovers. Sounds like a lot, which it is, but they still turned the Pistons over 22 times. So they won the battle of the possessions, at least when it comes to turnovers. So that's something that the Magic can hang their hat on. Like the defense is back, but the offense, scoring 83 points is just not, it is. I talked about this series being a 1990s throwback. In the 90s, you might have won the game with 83 points scored, but that's not going to happen in this year of our basketball lords 2026. Like that's just not the way it's going to be. So it's unfortunate because this is something that's been a reoccurring thing over the course of the time for this iteration of the Magic. They far too often are a team that just doesn't score in the playoffs. Now, this year we scored 115 points. It was a record for the Magic. We've scored over 120 points so many times that it became kind of second nature to some extent at certain points, because we've had so much Jekyll and Hyde happening this season that 120 points became regular enough that it wasn't so surprising and kind of like a noteworthy thing. David still didn't have to talk about is it anything, basically. It was happening enough that we'd hope that, okay, if the defense was going to be good enough, then we would have a great season. The defense was great enough in this game, keeping Detroit to less than 100 points after giving up 101 points in last game. So the defense is here. It's just the offense. If we look at the points scored on the road for this iteration of the Magic from the playoffs in 24 and in 25 and in 26 so far, they're averaging only a little less than 93 points on the road, and that includes the 112 scored in game 1 in this series. If you look at the point totals, 83, 86 in games 1 and 2 on the road in Cleveland in 2024. Then we had 103 and 94 in games 5 and game 7. So they scored a max of 103 on the road in that series, but that was when they were kind of babies, right? We saw Paolo play very well. Jalen and Franz kind of played up and down during that period. So they were babies. You can kind of take that and say, all right, it is what it is. It's their first taste of the playoffs. It is what it is. Then last year against the Celtics in the 3 games they had on the road, 86, 100, and 89. So twice, couldn't even break 90. Okay, Jalen wasn't playing. KCP just wasn't helping at all offensively. They had to play Corey Joseph. Fair, right? Okay, we can again kind of have excuses. They're toddlers in the playoffs at that point. But now, then in the first 2 games here, again, the Magic scored over 115 points per game in the regular season, which was a record for the Magic. So you were hoping that the Magic would at least be able to score a little bit. Boom, game 1, 112. It's good. That's the most they've scored, this team in this iteration of the team on the road, 112 points. Great. But then they score 83, which ties the least that they've scored in a road game in the last few years in the playoffs. So kind of what is it, right? We can see, at least even in those games, in game 7 of 2024, game 5 of 2025, and in game 2 here in 2026, the Magic were outscored in the third quarter in 2024, 33-15 in the third quarter of game 7 in 2024, in game 5 of the 2025 first round against the Celtics. They were outscored 36-13 in the third quarter. And in game 2 of this series, they were outscored 38-16 in the third quarter. So in a lot of these games, they're in it, right? They were in it in Game 5 of the Celtics last year. They were in it in Game 7 against the Cavs in in 2024. They were in both those games, and then boom, they get blowed out in the third quarter, and then the game is over. So this wasn't a decisive game, obviously. This was a kind of would have been nice to have for the Magic, but again, it's still emblematic. Giving up 38 points and only being able to score 16 in a session, not great. And as I mentioned, the Magic have outscored the Pistons in 5 out of the 8 quarters. So it's not, again, that the Magic can't compete. It's just when they have bad periods, they get real bad periods. So we'll see how this goes moving forward when it comes to that. But again, the defense is back. If we look at the numbers so far through 2 games, 36 turnovers forced by the Magic. They're +7 in that category over the course of the first 2 games. So that still means that they had 29 themselves over the course of 2 games, which isn't great. But again, is you're able to turn the other team over more. That's obviously going to be an advantage for you. The Pistons are shooting 43% overall and 28% from 3 if you round up. The Magic offense, though, and this is where we talk about the offense struggling. The Magic offense is only at 41% over the first 2 games and 27% from 3. So in one hand, we could be excited that we got a split, especially with shooting numbers like that. But again, it just is bringing back vibes from 2024 and 2025, where the Magic, you saw them working on defense. You get excited about the game. You're in the game, and then you see that the Magic just can't score on the other end. So all that effort, all that work for them to stop the other team, they can't score enough to be able to win from them. So that's kind of where we are with the Magic. Hopefully they're able again to go back. They scored the most points scored by this iteration of the team in the playoffs is 121, which was in game 3 of the 2024 playoffs. So hopefully the Magic are able to shoot better, because Desmond has been able to throw up a lot more 3-point shots per game than he had in the regular season so far, with Franz and Paolo getting so much attention. So again, Desmond shooting 20% over the course of a series. It's not a very big sample size, so we hope that that it doesn't continue all the way through the rest of the series. But as we saw, he didn't shoot really well at the beginning of the year, and then was able to catch fire there once the new year happened. So hopefully he's able to catch fire much quicker on Saturday and Sunday and moving forward in this series, and doesn't have to be shooting 50+% from 3 like he did earlier in the regular season. But as long as he can get up to 40%, that would be outstanding, because then that'll loosen things up for Paolo and Franz in the paint. And again, that was why we brought in Desmond. That's why we wanted Desmond. So the season was what it was, but that's why we have him. That's why we're paying him the big bucks. That's why we gave up so much of draft capital, was for Desmond to show up in these games. And so far, he was sick in the first games, didn't really present as we had hoped he would, but I think at least in game 3, game 4, he's really gonna to come out. And if he does so, the Magic have a good opportunity to win those 2, have a commanding 3-1 lead, and then we'll really see what the Pistons are going to be made of. Now, if we're gonna do grades for the first 2 games, I didn't really do one for game 1, so we'll do a comparison of game 1 to game 2 grades. So Jamal, C in both games. There's not a lot of ask from him, so his role is kind of just to be thrown in there for a little bit. I'm guessing for athleticism, and just to kind of give Tristan and Franz a little bit of a break there, as well as AB and one of the other guards, either Jalen or Desmond. So he's not a lot is expected from him. So a C in both games, not much playing time anyway. So you're not going to really kill him. Goga, a B in game 1 and a C in game 2. he didn't score very much in either game, but that's not his role again. His role is to be the defensive guy, to grab rebounds. And in the limited amount of time that he was in game two, for sure, he had a good amount of blocks. In this one, a couple more blocks. Probably could have had a few more rebounds, would have been ideal, but he just didn't have that happen. And that's why he ended up with a C in this game. Tristan, in the first game, a B. In the second game, a C minus. This was one of those games that Tristan just kind of blended into the background, didn't really do too much. He was way more aggressive, way more present in game one. He had that big three again to extend the lead in the fourth quarter last game. So that's why we gave him. I gave him a B. This one, not much going on for Tristan, unfortunately. A B in the first game, I'd say a B minus, really, because he's not shooting well. He's not doing what he needs to. Obviously, his defense was impressive. That's why he ended up getting a B, just because his defense was there. He is continuing to progress from being out from injury. So again, that's trying to mitigate a little bit that's something that he is continuing to get back, is continuing to get his basketball conditioning back up and all of that, which is trying to be fair. But his jump shot isn't where it is. It's going to be interesting what they do with his extension this summer, just because he hasn't really performed for quite some time now, and we'll see what his group is going to ask for in terms of an extension amount. So we shall see. Now from the starters, Jalen, B plus in the first game, mostly because of just where he was physically. Just it seemed like they cloned him, and there were 3 or 4 Jalen's on the court in game one, and in game two, just to see, you know, again, no steals, no blocks, but he was the leading scorer in the game. Not the most efficient, still playing pretty well within himself and not turning the ball over crazy amount of times. So I think Jalen with a C in this one. Desmond, game one, C minus, and game two, a D. For me, he's played very poorly, or at least the level that we were hoping for from the first 2 games of this series. Desmond, to me, was the MVP of the season for the Magic, so that's probably an expectations thing on my end. So that can be fair in that respect, that I know that I'm asking a lot more of him, especially when he doesn't have to necessarily have the scoring output that he needed to have during the regular season with Franz back. Even though Franz isn't playing all that well, he needs to be able to hit his shots. That's why we brought him in here. Take your shots, which he is, but you got to make them. And that's, I think, where I was thinking with that. So a D for Desmond in game two. Wendell, A in game one. He played very well on both ends, did an excellent job in game one. In game two, D minus, really. Like, it just was scoring 3 points, foul trouble. I kind of guessed that was what was going to happen. Hit a couple open shots. He missed those. Duran, he did a good enough job on Duran, and that's why it wasn't an F, let's say, because Duran only ended up with 11 points still. So he competed. So I don't want to give anybody an F, really, but we need a little bit more from the offensive end with Wendell. He's still got 6 shots, which isn't a huge amount, but if 3 of 6, shoot, even 2 of 6 would have been outstanding, because at the times that we needed some of these things, it would have been great to have. So for Franz, game one, C plus. Game two, D plus. Like, Franz did not play well on either game. Really, he had a good fourth quarter, so that's what kind of raised his grade from probably a C minus in game one to a C plus. In game two, 4 steals, so he was competing on the defensive end, is why in the end he didn't end up with a D minus with Wendell. But offensively, having a tough time. Again, he wasn't hitting the mismatches. He wasn't doing enough offensively for him to really warrant even getting a C in this one. And Paolo, B plus game in game one, and a C game in game two. Aggressive, going to the basket, which is great. He had a jump shot as well. So Paolo was active. He just didn't feel as engaged in this one. And we need an engaged Paolo at every moment that he's on the court. So for me, a C in this one for Paolo. So all in all, Not a great game, and that's what I mean. Like, it was good that the Magic were able to compete in this one, tied at the half, all but that big run that happened in the third quarter. For the most part, the Magic have been competitive in this series. Could they have stolen this one? I doubt they would have been able to steal this one just because Detroit was really um, active on the defensive end, and the Magic just couldn't hit any shots. If the Magic were able to hit a couple more threes early on in the game and kind of separate themselves instead of having the uphill climb to get back into the game, then maybe the Magic could have stolen this one. But just the way it was going, it just didn't seem in the cards. But they got the one game that they needed. That's really all that you needed. They could have taken a stranglehold in this one, but they didn't, and it kind of is what it is. So looking forward to game three. Like I mentioned, the last couple years, the Magic have been 2-0 in game threes, coming off of 0-2 starts in both those series. This time they're 1-1. So if they're able to win game three, then again, that's just one step closer to starting to take a commanding lead in this series. Don't know if they're going to be favorites because again, the Pistons are the number one seed. So we'll see what the betting odds end up coming up as. But Paolo at home in the playoffs, it's been something that has been pretty automatic. Franz last year in game three was the leading scorer, scoring over 30 points against the Celtics. That was like a slog of a game. Hopefully, the Magic don't have to play that slow and have to be that methodical as they did in the Celtics series last year. But if that is what it is, then that's fine. Because again, as I mentioned, either take advantage of the mismatches, so Hunt, Duncan Robinson, Hunt Jenkins, Hunt Herter, Hunt these guys to make sure that you are just getting them out of the game because those are their shooters really in there. The only other playmakers that Detroit have. So hunt them, kind of how the Magic were hunting out matchups last year, or play the beautiful game that you guys played by making sure that you were passing the ball around and making sure that you were being an above average passing team and get our assists back up to the mid 20s or high 20s. Because if you're able to do that, then I think that's going to speak volumes. And I think the Magic will be able to come out victorious. But if they kind of do this in between game again, I don't think they still will be able to compete with Detroit. As I mentioned, the Magic are able to compete with this team. This team isn't a juggernaut. They did have a great season, to not take anything away from them, but the Magic are able to compete with them. We've seen it so far. The numbers are basically the same offensively for both teams. The Magic have forced more turnovers. There's not that much separating these two teams other than the 28-3 run that happened in this one. So I guess between the two games, it's a +3 to the Pistons. So again, the Magic are in the series. The Magic hopefully will be able to take a 2-1 series advantage. And I'll do a video after game three talking about that one. And I've started working on the offseason videos just to kind of give an understanding and give everybody an understanding of what's at stake and what a creative offseason the Magic are going to have to do if they're going to try to upgrade this team to not just be a first round playoff team, or even if they win this series, a second round playoff team, because I think this summer is going to be a chaotic one. There's going to be a lot of teams that are going to see their finances and want to shuffle things up if they don't do well in the playoffs. So it could be an interesting one for not only the Magic, but a few other clubs in the NBA. And then I'll be here to talk about it all off season. So that's it for game two. The Magic, it's a little disappointing they didn't compete in the early parts of the third quarter, but otherwise it was a successful trip to Detroit. Now, hopefully, the Magic are going to be able to take the energy from the crowd in game three and take a 2-1 lead. So, as always, do the normal YouTube things, like, share, drop a comment below on if you're happy about the split. Or are you getting greedy and wanting both road games? Are you happy with the way the Magic are playing so far? And if you want to do so, hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on any content that I produce. If you're an audio podcast listener, make sure to rate the show 5 stars, leave a comment, and share it with another Orlando Magic fan because it really helps the show grow by getting to more people. As always, thank you for clicking on this video and spending a little bit of time talking Magic with me. I hope you're having a great day.